Alrighty, hello, hello. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over a little program that I'm actually putting together for myself. This is essentially my next little training block here, and we're going to start as I do with any program. We're going to talk first about my goals, kind of the situation report, and then we'll dive into the program itself. So right now, my main foci in terms of my training is I want to improve my pressing strength. That's really my number one priority. If you look at my deadlift versus my press, deadlift is really solid, press needs more work. Now, in the last training block, what I noticed was it was holding me back was my shoulder stability. When I was doing my dumbbell incline press set, I wanted 10, got to 8, and I just felt very unstable, couldn't lock things into place. So what that means for me is this next block, I need to focus in a little bit more on my shoulder stability as well as upper back strength. Whoops. By doing that, that'll help me improve my press and then also have transference to my deadlift because the upper back helps with everything there, and stronger, more stable shoulders obviously is going to help improve my pressing. Now, in terms of continuing to rebuild there, that is referring to my deadlift, in that I'm not doing any 1-rep maxes for my deadlift right now. I'm just rebuilding it. I finished a block pull and stiff-legged deadlift emphasis block, and this next block I'm going to be switching those variations out. Now, looking at my situation of training, I'm still lifting 3 days a week, and normally I'd go lower intensive, upper intensive, and then a full body day. What I'll be doing in this next block is actually switching this order around. Reason being, I want to prioritize my upper body training first, so that way I'm a little more fresh as I take on my upper body intensive day. Still have my 3 days a week of cardio and conditioning work. So that's just what that looks like there. Now let's dive into the program proper. So we have upper intensive, lower intensive, we'll have a cardio conditioning day here, a full body day, cardio conditioning day, and then it's not on the sheet, but there'll be another cardio conditioning day right there. Now, as far as each day goes, we're going to dive into upper intensive first since that's first in the week. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up with a little circuit, 2 to 3 rounds of band pull-aparts, a bent press, which is essentially a one-arm shoulder press and windmill at the same time, and tricep press downs. The reason for these 3 movements together is this is going to help warm up the pressing muscles. It's going to help get me more mentally into the workout. I find personally if I just dive right into the main movement, especially on an overhead press, I'm better off taking a little bit more time, help me get into that flow state, help me kind of get my head into the game, so to speak. And these exercises are great for shoulder stability. And then the press down is just there to warm up my elbows so I don't irritate my triceps. For my main pressing movement in this block, I'm going to be focusing on the axle push press. And the reason why I want to focus in on that is I'm not near a competition right now, so I don't need to worry about my jerk technique, but what I do need to improve is my overall pressing. So the axle push press is a great developmental exercise there. When you look at that versus something like a log push press, the challenge there is the log. It's so much more clunky and awkward than the axle. It can be really hard to master your leg drive on the log and then have that carry over to other implements, whereas learning your leg drive on the axle carries over to other implements. The next movement I'm going to slot in here is an alternating Arnold press. Now, if you've seen my Spark.Ignite program, you'll recognize this one here. So I'm going to hold one weight at extension, and one is going to come down as the other comes up, so I'm going to press them almost seesaw style, if you will. Reason for that is it's going to force me to be a bit more humble, and again, really great for that shoulder stability. I'm not going to use such a heavy weight that I cheat it and swing it around. Then we're going to do some Y raises, face pulls, and then a howling 30. So this is an adaptation of something from Steve Shaw. He does something called Skull Destroyers, where it's 3 laying skull crushers and then 3 close grip bench press. My variation of that is 3 overhead tricep extensions into 3 seated shoulder press with dumbbells. You go back and forth to get 30 total reps, 2 rounds of that. That's going to really light up your triceps. And then we'll top off with a seated hammer curl. Now, as far as the progression model goes, for the axle push press, what I want to do here is something called wave loading. So, for example, week 1 is 864, then it goes 753, 642, 532, 321, and then in week 6 I'll attempt to do 1 rep max. Now, what wave loading is, for example, in 864 is I'll do a given weight for a set of 8, add a little weight, do a set of 6. Rest for a few, add a little weight, then a set of 4. That's 1 full wave. So then in the next wave, I'll do a heavier 8, then I would do a heavier 6 and then a heavier 4. The idea is that gives me more touches. It lets me build up more volume. And it's a great way for me to get a ton of practice in these earlier weeks, really dialing in my leg drive and my bar positioning there. And then 2, again, I find if I try to just dive in and work up, Mentally, I check out a little bit. Maybe I get a little hyperfixated. By using the wave, I get tons of base volume, and I feel a little more confident, a little more competent. So then week 2, 753, so naturally I'd go a little heavier. Week 3, 642s, naturally a little bit heavier. So you get the idea there. So I'm not doing any RMs until week 6, but there's a very good chance by the time we reach week 5 on those 3-2-1 waves, I could be approaching 1 RM territory or surpassing it just due to having built up the confidence and the competence in these first few weeks with the movement. Then with the alternating Arnold press, what I'm going to do here is 3 weeks of 15 rep maxes, then a week of 12 rep maxes, a 10 rep max, and an 8 rep max. We're keeping the reps really high here, specifically to challenge my stability. This isn't about building raw, static pressing strength with this movement, especially since it is an alternating unilateral movement. I just want to really hammer my stability here. Then for the Y raise and face pull, we're just doing some rest pause there. Howling 30s, just 2 sets, as I explained earlier. And then for the seated hammer curls, the 5 to 8. What that is I'm just going to take a heavy weight out for a set of 5 to 8. Then I'll drop the weight by about 20%, do a follow-up set of 10 to 12. Nothing too exciting. For something like a hammer curl, I like this just because it gets the work done really quickly. By this point in the workout, I'm going to not be wanting to spend a lot of time on it, but a little bicep work is a good idea. Then the next day will be the lower intensive day. Side note here, I pull with a hook grip, so that's why I have biceps being done the day before I deadlift. If I pulled mixed grip, I would not put bicep work the day before you deadlift. With that being said, lower intensive day, I'm going to open up with some reverse hypers, a Gar hammer or hanging leg raise, and then Nordic curls. Now the reason for this is my low back is going to be probably a little tired after all the overhead push pressing from the day prior. Gar hammers are going to help take me out of anterior pelvic tilt, warm up my core, and Nordic hamstrings to hit my hamstrings. Now on this day, you'll notice everything is going to be using that 5 to 8, 10 to 12 method. Reason why is I'm not really prioritizing my lower body strength right now. I'm focusing more on shoulder stability, upper back strength, and just rebuilding my deadlift. I want to focus on my press right now. So for my variation on the deadlift, I'm using a snatch grip deadlift. Reason why here is it's going to force me to be a little bit more humble with my loading. And then 2, that wide grip is going to help hit the upper back. Then safety squat bar good mornings. Reason for that is I just finished a block focusing on my stiff-legged deadlift. Really helped me strengthen my low back, and this is going to carry on and helping to hit my low back a little bit more, but I didn't want to do 2 deadlift variations on the same day since I am overhead pressing the day before, and I find overhead pressing does generate a lot of low back fatigue for me. Then, normally, depending on what the program looks like, you'd see a squat here, but I'm actually going to only squat once a week, but I still want to hit some sort of leg work. So since I have the SSB out, we're going to do Bulgarian split squats, 5 to 8, 10 to 12 method, a chest supported row, 5 to 8, 10 to 12 method, and then a Kelso shrug, which is essentially a chest supported incline shrug. On that, let's go ahead, actually, we're going to change that out. So instead of doing the 5 to 8, we're just going to do some rest pause work aiming for 40 total repetitions. There we go. This is going to really hit the upper back very hard as well as the low back, and then I have my cardio conditioning day right here, so I get a full day of recovery. Now, my third and final lifting day of the week, we're going to open up here. We're going to start again with the reverse hyper and Gar hammer raise. And then what I want to do is a serratus dip. So that's a dip where you come in over the top and protract the scapula, really working your serratus. Good for the shoulder stability. It also helps loosen up the low back. And then I'm going to move into front squats. I'm using a pretty simple linear progression here. And the idea is by week 6, I'll be attempting a new 1 rep max. And my planned opener is going to be 365. And these are just some numbers I have outlined here. Pretty simple operation. And I will play with these as the weeks progress because maybe in week 3, that triple at 320 feels way too difficult. So I might scale everything down. But the idea here is I have an idea of where I want to end. So then from there, I can figure out where I want to start. And then I'm going to do a flow press for my flow state work for my log press. Now, if you've watched my channel before, that pretty much means I'll just roll up the log. I'll be doing a set of 5 push press. Then I'll knock out some pull-ups, and I'm just going to go back and forth for 18 minutes. Next week a little heavier, next week a little bit heavier, and then I'm going to track how many sets I do, because if I'm getting, let's say a ton of sets, and let's say I get 20 sets in on week 1, right? That'd be 100 reps at 125 pounds. I'm going to give myself a weight jump. So instead of the 135 I'd outlined, I'd take it up to 150, just to give myself an idea here. Now, after that, I'm going to move into a chest dominant press of sorts, either a dumbbell bench or a dip. Going to see which one feels better. I could alternate that 3 weeks of one, 3 weeks of the other. Ultimately, it's not too big of a deal there. I just want to pick one of those to help overload my triceps a little bit as well. Then the face pull, I'm doing face pulls twice a week because, I just figured out a new way to do them where I'm laying on a bench. It feels really good, really stable, get a lot of overload. So on this day, I'm going to go a little heavier. I'm going to use that 5 to 8, 10 to 12 method, just as I would for my supplemental press. And then last but not least, I'm going to finish off with an incline tricep press down. And if you've seen my Instagram, I just shared this recently. Really love how that movement feels. And I'm going with a heavy rest pause on this because that position is so stable and locked in, I can really focus on overloading my triceps. So if you look through the progressions overall here, what you'll find is I'm getting a lot of volume in on upper body, and I slowly bring it down before I ramp to a max. And even on my alternating Arnold press here, heavy emphasis on shoulder stability, but then the movements are ordered in such a way that the following day, I'm not going to beat myself to hell and back, wherein, I would be doing a heavy axle push press day one, and then day two, I'm doing a competition style deadlift. I want to pick variations, especially in the off season as I'm focusing on one thing, that build the main variation but require less overall load. I'm starting at 435 pounds in week one, for example, on this block. With the block pulls, I started that block at 405 pounds, and I did that for 8, and I finished the block at 495 for 5. So the idea here is I'd like to try and take 20-pound jumps weekly as long as I'm winding up in that 5 to 8 rep range. But again, we want to mold and clay, not set in stone. Regardless, I hope this gives you some insight into how I go about exercise selection and progression programming. This is just a nice little 6-week block I wrote out for myself. Reason being, this week here of the 11th, I'll actually be traveling out of town, so this is just the time I have right now. Once I get back from traveling, I'll be able to write out a longer block, and if there's enough interest, I'll do a video on that. Anyways, hope you found this useful, and I'll catch you all next time.